Hey guys, Supersonic Thomas here, and what you're going to see is the cut Sonic Movie 1 retrospective that I mentioned in the last video. It's essentially me going over the summary of the story and sharing my experiences first watching this movie. Oh, and my opinions. Now, the reason why I'm actually uploading this is because, well, I've been working on this whole retrospective video for months now, and I decided to cut it, and I thought, why let this segment go to waste and make it its own video? And that's about it. Hope you enjoyed this video, and here's my retrospective on Sonic the Hedgehog. Okay, I won't waste much time. Most of y'all already seen the movie, so I'll keep it simple. Sonic the Hedgehog revolves around a blue anthropomorphic hedgehog called Sonic. What? That's kind of redundant. I mean, we already know his name. It's in the title. Anyway, he lived on an island called Green Hill? South Island? Mobius? Nah, screw it. It's called South Island. I don't care. He lived in a treehouse with an owl named Longclaw. She warned Sonic that someone could have seen him. Sonic blows it off by saying that he's too fast to be seen. A tribe called the Echidna showed up to steal Sonic's power. Patrick fires an arrow that strikes Longclaw. She reminds Sonic how important it is that he keeps him and his powers hidden. She uses a ring to open a portal to Earth and gives the rest to Sonic. She tells Sonic to flee to the planet. We time jump to 10 years later, following a local sheriff named Tom, who is played by James Marsden, who lives in a town called Green Hills. Clever. Sonic playfully messes with him by zooming past his radar gun at ridiculous speeds. Honestly, this scene was just entertaining to me because seeing Sonic like look at his speed on the radar, like, and he's like doing this gesture, like, really reminds me of how expressive he is in the CG cutscenes. Tom gets out to investigate, discovering one of Sonic's blue quills. Nearby, Sonic saves a turtle from being ran over by a car and takes him for a ride, scarring the turtle for life. He basically explains to the audience how he has adjusted to life on Earth. He spies on people, he observes people of the town, including Tom and his veterinarian wife, Maddie, who is played by Tika Sumpter, forming a bond with them despite not meeting them. He has a therapy session with himself, realizing that he's lonely, fearing that he'll spend the rest of his life alone. Tom receives his letter of acceptance into the San Francisco Police Department. He expresses that he wants to do more than simple odd jobs as a sheriff and wants to actually save lives. Sonic observes the local baseball playoffs, plays baseball with himself, gets emotional again. Okay, I think we've gone on long enough. Sonic runs around the bases to run from his problems and emits an explosion of energy, causing a power outage across the entire Pacific Northwest. The news reaches the Pentagon. They send Dr. Robotnik to investigate. Sonic goes to Tom's shed to open a ring portal, but he gets caught by Tom and gets shot by his tranquilizer. Sonic sees San Francisco on Tom's shirt, dropping the bag of rings through the portal. Sonic needs Tom's help to get to San Francisco to fetch his rings. Robot shenanigans happen and they escape the chaos. The pair go on a road trip to San Francisco to fetch the rings. A bar fight happens, Sonic moves at Quicksilver speed, they leave the bar and rest at a motel. While Sonic sleeps, Tom sees that one of the remaining items on Sonic's bucket list is to make a real friend. At the moment, he hears a news report and learns that he has been declared as a domestic terrorist. I don't remember that happening in the movie. The next day, on the road, Tom tells Sonic that he'll be leaving Green Hills to become a San Francisco street cop and prove himself as a hero. But Sonic gets baffled and angered, asking why would he leave. A battle between Sonic and Robotnik's tank ensues. It ends with a tiny helicopter attaching to Sonic's glove as a bomb. Sonic manages to get it off, but gets caught in the explosion and dies. Maddie wakes up Sonic and Rachel's daughter Jojo gives him his iconic shoes that we all know and love. Sonic obtains the rings, he says his goodbyes, he throws the ring to open a portal, but oh no, gets deflected by Egg Drone. Dr. Robotnik surrounds the trio with Egg Drones ready to fire. Sonic proceeds to shove Tom and Maddie off the building. Wow, dude. Sonic runs through the city as Robotnik gives chase. Sonic gets shot through the portal and comes out tumbling across the street. Robotnik remarks that he was just a silly little alien who didn't belong here! With restrained anger, Tom responds by telling him that Sonic knew more about being human than he ever will, proclaiming him to have been his friend. And with the power of realized friendship, Sonic opens his eyes and lightning bolts from him And what follows is the fight scene that made my jaw drop. Look, this is not scripted. I'm just gonna say this right now. This one wowed me because how Sonic just bounces off buildings and light poles, just straight up destroying Eggman's Eggmobile. I'm just gonna call it the Eggmobile. I don't care. Repeatedly bouncing on it, bouncing back, just destroying it. So instead of Sonic leaving Earth, Eggman's leaving Earth. He calls Tom to throw a ring portal to the Mushroom Planet. Sonic and Eggman charge at each other one last time, with Sonic performing a final spin attack that sends Eggman's Eggmobile flying backwards into the ring portal before it closes. What a fight for such a small film. Even rewatching it just makes me smile. Nearly 3 months later on the Mushroom Planet, Robotnik has completely lost his sanity, shaving his head, letting his mustache grow out. The Eggman look that we all know. He reflects on his situation and remarks that a lesser man would die in such a place. He proclaims that he'll be back by Christmas, before going off to explore, with his Eggmobile parts on his back and his souvenir from the battle in hand. But wait, there's one more surprise. On forested hills in an area near Green Hills, there, the leaves stir as a ring portal opens. Emerging from the portal, Miles Tails Prower, who is voiced by Colleen O'Shaughnessy, with his Miles Electric in hand. The scene ends with Tails hoping that he is not too late, flying into the forest towards Green Hills. And that, everyone, was Sonic the Hedgehog. And in my opinion, it's a really good movie. I'll just get the positives out of the way right now. Sonic's design has to be the best part of the movie, hands down. The initial reason for why the crew went with a more realistic design was because they thought a cartoon-like Sonic design would not fit in the real world. But that mentality already contradicts its own concept. Having a cartoon character like Sonic the Hedgehog in the real world is not realistic to begin with. And changing his design to make him look realistic to fit in the real world does not make the film any more appealing. It's Sonic. It's supposed to be unrealistic. Not to mention the target demographic was supposedly kids and possibly teens, and they have a Sonic design that makes him look like a man in a costume. And then we got the new design where you can actually recognize Sonic as Sonic. Tyson Hesse managed to make a design with realism, but also kept his signature features. There's a visual appeal that would make you go, he looks pretty cool. I understand that the most important thing for a film is the story and its characters, but visual appeal is always important. And that's why the general public voiced their opinions on the original design. This is not Sonic. This is Sonic. The casting. Sonic in this movie was voiced by Ben Schwartz. This is a Sonic voice that I like. It's Ben as movie Sonic. It really adds to the personality of the character, and it's just so fun. Jim Carrey as Robotnik. Now, I didn't really know much about Jim Carrey before this movie, except that I know that he played in this one movie that I used to watch from time to time, Mr. Popper's Penguins. Even as a kid watching it, he was still entertaining to me because of the quirkiness he added to the character. Now, I would be lying if I said Jim Carrey being casted as Dr. Eggman, an egotistical scientist with an IQ of 300, wasn't the best casting decision they ever made. Aside from Sonic, Jim Carrey's Robotnik stole the show for me. Not just because that we know he's, well, Eggman. His acting as the character was just so entertaining. A great casting choice indeed. The human characters are mostly good. I know a lot of people do not like the human characters, and I would agree if the characters were bad. I'm looking at you, Chris Thorndike. Except for season 3, Chris Thorndike. He's cool. Forced, but he's fine. Tom's arc is about him wanting to be a San Francisco cop so he can actually save lives. And when he confessed this to Sonic, he insisted that Tom should stay in Green Hills and help the people who relied on him. You know that character trait that Sonic has where he changes the people around him? After thinking about it, it kind of shows in this scene. Though it wasn't intentional, you can tell.
I was forced from my home. Your home is perfect and you're leaving it.
Why would you do that?
But it was something interesting that I noticed. At the end of the film, Tom decided to stay in Green Hills and take care of the people around him. Remember this. Now, his story isn't perfect, and I think there are some things that would make it a little more interesting, which I'll get into later. The references. There are just so many to choose from, but I'll just make it quick. The first and obvious one, Green Hill Zone, which looks amazing. The engraving on the stone from Labyrinth Zone. Patrick Mack's mask resembling the design from his game counterpart. The Hilltop Road sign. The references on the map that a Sega know-it-all would recognize. Sonic's balancing animation on the light. His idle pose. His Smash Ultimate pose. And the one that I immediately recognized was Sonic. It was so fun watching it for the first time. And every time I rewatch it, I feel so nostalgic because of how much fun I had watching it. This movie will always hold a special place in my heart because of that first experience. Now that we got the positives out of the way, let's get into the negatives. I'm gonna pick up where we left off with Tom. I'm not joking, after watching the movie for the first time, I did not remember the domestic terrorism accusation, because this plot point was rarely brought up. Now if you do remember, you would have thought it would actually bring weight to the story, but they didn't because they completely forgot about it. Now normally you would think that Tom punching Robotnik would be just a one-time gag, but it actually did come back to bite Tom later on when he's accused of an act of domestic terrorism and there's a manhunt for him. They could have not done this, but they did because this is the real world and there are consequences for such actions. But if you're going to drop that plot point completely later on, then what's the point of having it in the first place? So basically what I would do is just keep that plot point in mind, like have him take precautions in public. Sonic not actually being able to run up the building and grab the rings himself is kind of weird, because in the beginning of the movie you can see that he is capable of running up buildings. So what's stopping him from doing just that at that moment? Some people actually brought up some good points to explain this. Like for example, Sonic could have just ran to San Francisco himself, but he decided not to because he wanted to tag along with Tom and be his friend. Sonic did not want to get the rings by himself because he wanted to say goodbye to Tom and Maddie before he leaves. Now, I could see that being the case if it was actually implied. I mean, you don't have to make it obvious, but it's more so a theory that fans came up with, and I'm gonna go with that. And the last negative that this film has is that this Sonic movie is more so a buddy cop road trip film than a Sonic movie. The majority of this movie is just Sonic and Tom driving from one place to another, just in a stationary area. And we only ever get an action scene at the middle and the end of the movie. And the only Sonic thing that we got was literally at the beginning with Green Hill and the Echidna tribe. Though these flaws didn't have a hindrance on my enjoyment of the film. Honestly, doesn't bother me too much. The best way I can describe Sonic Movie 1 is that it's a prologue, a setup for bigger adventures to come. And boy, was the next adventure big.